Hello and welcome to Maths with Jacob. This lesson will focus on tessellations. A tessellation occurs when we have a plane shape which is completely covered by smaller interlocking shapes. The smaller shapes fit together neatly and there are no gaps. Some people say that the smaller shapes must be identical. The smaller shapes may or may not be identical, as we can see by the following pictures. Now on this first slide you'll see shapes that are identical, that is the smaller shapes. On the next slide you'll see examples of the smaller shapes that are not identical. The three shapes to the left show examples where the smaller shapes are identical. The above tessellated shape is a perfect example showing how the smaller shapes are identical in shape and size. That's a very typical shape there, and you can see it quite commonly in wall tiles or floor tiles, for example. Smaller shapes are not identical. If you focus on the smaller pieces which are coloured differently, you can see that the shapes are not identical. This is a very good example of a tessellation because the whole area is covered, there are no gaps, but the smaller shapes are not identical. The above picture shows an excellent example of a tessellation where the smaller shapes are not identical. So if you look carefully you'll see a lot of different shapes here. For example, that's a square there. There's a hexagon there. See that there? So those two shapes are different. Okay, and you'll see a few other shapes too that are different. For example, look at this one. See, and that one there. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 shapes there that are all different. Tessellations in real life. One of the wonders of nature is the picture of the honeycomb above. It shows a great example of tessellations in nature where each of the small shapes is a hexagon. I've got this example in a lot of my videos because I'm truly fascinated by it. A great example of a tessellation, and this is all constructed by the beautiful bees. This is an example, and it's an excellent example of a tessellation. The tabletop is very attractively designed with a very creative pattern. And here it is here. You'll see there are no gaps because all these small shapes interlock beautifully. The chessboard is a perfect example of a tessellation in real life. Now we've all seen chessboards or draft boards. They're just simple squares and they cover the large area perfectly. When a jigsaw puzzle is completed, it is a great example of a tessellation. So see all the smaller pieces here. They don't have to be the same size, they don't have to be identical, but when you put them all together, they cover the complete shape perfectly. So this video has been an introduction to tessellations, and it's shown you some examples where the smaller shapes are identical, and also examples where they are not identical, and we've seen some examples of a tessellation in real life.